It is Wednesday, July 15, 2026. U.S. forces strike Iranian military targets in a 5-hour operation across the Strait of Hormuz. The State Department sanctions more than 50 targets tied to Iran's shadow shipping empire. And inflation posts its sharpest monthly drop since 2020, while the World Health Organization tracks global vaccine progress and the World Cup semifinals kick off in Atlanta. Here are the day's top stories. U.S. Central Command completed a new wave of strikes against Iran at 10:15 p.m. Eastern on July 13th, according to a CENTCOM public release. During the 5-hour mission, U.S. forces struck military targets across Bushehr, Chah Bahar, Jask, Konarak, Abu Musa, and Bandar Abbas. CENTCOM says forces employed precision munitions against Iranian coastal defense systems, missile and drone sites, and maritime capabilities, aiming to degrade Iran's ability to attack commercial shipping. The strikes are the latest in a series of CENTCOM operations launched in response to Iranian attacks on commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM states more than 50,000 U.S. service members are currently deployed across the Middle East. The operation follows earlier waves of strikes earlier in July that targeted similar coastal and military infrastructure as tensions between Washington and Tehran over shipping lane security continue. Why it matters: continued strikes signal a sustained U.S. military campaign to protect global shipping lanes, raising the stakes for regional stability, oil markets, and any diplomatic off-ramp between Washington and Tehran. The State Department announced new sanctions targeting the illicit shipping network of U.S.-designated Mohammed Hossein Shamkhani, according to a July 14th release from the Office of the Spokesperson. The action designates more than 50 individuals, entities, and vessels that the State Department says enable Shamkhani and the Iranian regime to continue profiting from oil exports while, in the department's words, the Iranian people suffer. State says the designations come amid Iran's continued attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz and are part of a broader U.S. pressure campaign against Iran's sanctions evasion networks. The action follows a July 10th State Department announcement targeting Iranian regime financiers and shadow banking networks tied to Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, including a Dubai-based national accused of holding real estate across Germany, the UK, Spain, Cyprus, and the UAE on the regime's behalf. Why it matters: the sanctions aim to choke off revenue Tehran needs to fund military operations, tying economic pressure directly to the ongoing Strait of Hormuz conflict. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports the Consumer Price Index fell 0.4% in June on a seasonally adjusted basis, the largest monthly drop since April 2020. Over the past 12 months, CPI rose 3.5%, reaching an index level of 333.952. BLS says the energy index fell 5.7% in June, the largest contributor to the monthly decline. The June data followed a 0.5% monthly increase in May when energy prices had been climbing for 3 straight months. BLS reports energy costs rose 3.9% in May, 3.8% in April, and 10.9% in March, before reversing sharply in June even as shelter and food prices continued to rise, offsetting some of the drop in the broader index. Why it matters: the sharp energy-driven cooldown gives the Federal Reserve more room to debate rate cuts at its July 28th and 29th meeting, though annual inflation remains well above the Fed's 2% target. The World Health Organization and UNICEF report that 90% of infants worldwide, nearly 116 million children, received at least one dose of the DTP vaccine in 2025, with 85%, or 110 million, completing the full 3-dose series. Both figures rose 1 percentage point from the previous year, according to the joint WUENIC estimates released today. The agencies say global coverage remains 1 point below 2019 levels and has hovered in a narrow range since 2009. An estimated 13.5 million children received 0 vaccine doses in 2025, nearly 750,000 fewer than the prior year, though WHO and UNICEF note many children who start the schedule still fail to complete it, offsetting gains among the hardest-to-reach populations. Why it matters. The agencies are calling on governments to boost funding and combat vaccine misinformation, warning that conflict zones and funding gaps could stall further progress on childhood immunization. FIFA's official match center confirms England faces Argentina today in Atlanta in the second FIFA World Cup 2026 semifinal, kicking off at 3 p.m. local time. Argentina, the reigning champions, advanced past Switzerland 3-1 in extra time behind goals from Julian Alvarez and Lautaro Martinez, per FIFA's match records. England reached the semi-final on the strength of a Jude Bellingham brace in the quarter-final comeback win over Norway. The winner advances to face Spain, who booked their spot in the final with a 2-0 win over France on July 14th. Goals from Mikel Oyarzabal and Pedro Porro in Sunday's championship match in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Why it matters. It's the first England-Argentina meeting in 21 years, with a World Cup final berth on the line. Like and subscribe for fact-based news from official government sources only. Leave a comment. Tell us what stories you want to hear.